structure built by the Israelites around 700 BC, maybe a little earlier than that, a couple years earlier. It was designed to move the water from the Gihon spring down to a pool, the Pool of Siloam, that they built in order to secure their water supply in the wake of the Assyrian invasion, which occurred in around 701 BC. Sennacherib invaded Judah, conquered many cities, including Lachish, conquered all the cities basically. Hezekiah knew Jerusalem was going to come under siege, and so he ordered a tunnel built that would secure the water supply and prevent the Assyrians from getting the water supply. This is the tunnel that they built. You can see here it goes back as well. It goes on for 500 meters. It's all underground. It was dug through solid rock by the Judean engineers. They did it by essentially following a seam, a natural crack in the rock that allowed them to follow seepage of the water from the Gihon spring, which is behind me, down to the Pool of Siloam, which is probably 300 meters ahead of me. And so by chiseling along this crack, they were able to follow a natural crevice, and then ultimately this allowed them to reach the Siloam pool, where the water now flows. You can see the water's kind of low now, a little bit chilly, but not too bad. We're walking this in mid-February. Now, the engineers that did this left a lot of chisel marks on the sides of the walls. You can see those there, where the chiselers cut into the rock on both sides. They had another group that was chiseling from the south northward along this same seam. And so they had one crew chiseling south, which is the way we're headed now, and another crew chiseling north through this tunnel. And basically this was a factor that contributed to the success of the Judean efforts against the siege of Sennacherib. Now when Sennacherib took Judea, he conquered all of the cities, including Lachish, famous siege that he showed pictures of. He conquered all of these cities and caused Jerusalem to pay tribute. Sennacherib says the king of Judah was like a bird in a cage. That is to say, he was trapped in Jerusalem. Now this is also, of course, the time of Isaiah. Isaiah was Hezekiah's great prophet, and the book of Isaiah, as well as the book of Kings, contains prophecies that Isaiah gave in relationship to this siege. Here's a little seepage coming down through the natural crevices, groundwater penetrating around. Anyway, Isaiah, of course, prophesied that the Lord would deliver Jerusalem, and that is exactly what the Lord did. In the book of Kings, there's the passage that describes how the Assyrians woke up one morning, and it says the angel of death had struck them down. Most people think that that's simply a poetic way of saying a plague. The Lord sent a plague upon the Assyrian army. They were their numbers were so depleted that they had no hope of capturing Jerusalem, and so they stopped. And this, of course, meant the survival of the kingdom of Judah. There's more rainwater, or rather seepage water dripping off the roof here. A little bit narrowed at this point. So, the victory permitted the survival of the kingdom of Judah. Now, 20 years before, Sargon had taken Samaria and taken the kings of Israel captive, along with the tribes of Israel, the northern kingdom, which then become kind of the legendary lost 10 tribes. So we know what the fate of Hezekiah and the Judeans would have been if they hadn't been victorious in this siege. They would have also been taken captive by the Assyrians and probably disappeared from history just as the 10 tribes of the north did. More seepage water there. So, the survival of Jerusalem was crucial to the survival of Israelite religion and the Israelite nation, and therefore the coming of Christ. Because if the Judeans had gone captive and disappeared, become lost tribes, no Jesus. So, this tunnel then was part of that effort to resist the Assyrian siege. Now, of course, in the long run, Judah did fall in 586, but it was to the Babylonians. It was a century later, after the reforms of Hezekiah, the reign of Manasseh, which kind of fell into apostasy, and then the reforms of Josiah again. Jerusalem did fall, despite all the best efforts. You can see here how stalactites are forming on the roof of this from the seepage of the water we've been looking at a little bit. So, Jerusalem does fall, and that, of course, is associated with the narrative of Lehi and the origins of the Book of Mormon. So, it was a crucial phenomenon, the survival of Judea, in a number of different ways. And this tunnel is archaeologically probably the best surviving evidence of that siege, because it was built specifically in response to the needs of the city to have a secure water supply that the Assyrians could not get a hold of, and therefore preserve the city during the siege. I believe this is the spot where they were digging. This is where the crew coming from the north met up with the crew coming from the south. And you can see they were digging forward there a bit. You can see the chisel marks a little bit going kind of this way across the rock. And then at this point, they heard the crew coming from the other direction, and their chisel marks go the opposite way, and they met. The two tunnels met. So these guys kind of went the wrong way for a minute or two. Well, a few days probably of chiseling. And then I could hear the chisel sounds from the other guys, and the Solomon inscription says this explicitly. And I'll try to put a copy of the Solomon inscription into this video so that you can see how it worked. But this is, I think, is the place where they connected together. And you can see the natural crack up there, a crevice in the rock that was the type of thing they were following, this natural crack that allowed the water to flow. So here we are, traveling through this tunnel, and now we're at the opposite crew's spot, kind of meanders. There you can see the crack again. You can see the fissure where there was seepage that told them how to get to the Gihon Spring, because the water was seeping through here and coming out down below. So by following that fissure, they were able to, number one, dig the tunnel, but number two, dig it in two directions.